you are the parent of a senior, they're feeling stressed right now. And parenting a senior is a very special kind of parenting. It's a very special season of your life. I am also the parent of a senior right now. So I am going through what you're going through. And this is my third child going through the process. So I have gone through it 3 times now. And I've also had 3 juniors and 3 sophomores and 3 freshmen. So no matter what stage your child is in right now, I have been there. And hoping that I can drop breadcrumbs for you and maybe make your process a little bit easier. So I have a few points that I want to make. But I also want to at times address people who are at different ages and stages of the process. And I'm mostly going to talk to parents of seniors, but I will also be speaking to parents of younger children too. And first, one thing I want to say is if you are the parent of a freshman, I'm glad you're here, but also I want you to know and look at high school not as a job audition for college. High school should be high school. And I think that now more than ever, and especially with the mental health situation in this country for our young people, we need to let them be children. And 14 years old is still a child, and so is 15. And I'm kind of feeling like 20 is too right now about my junior in college. So I do want you to remember that. So while I think it's great to start planning and thinking about college when your children are younger, please don't look at high school as like one long job interview. Just let them be kids. And so that leads me to the first point that I want to make about parenting in this process. And that is parents need to watch their language. And I don't mean your curse words because I have a huge potty mouth. And I'm just grateful that it doesn't come out more when I'm doing webinars. So very professional. But my very Southern mother is truly mortified by me. That's okay. But when I say watch your language, I mean your language around the college admissions process and around college in general. And that can start when your kids are in middle school, but it definitely is applicable to the juniors and seniors. We, I think, fall into a habit where we believe our kids aren't listening to what we say, maybe because they act like they're not listening to what we say, maybe ever. And I think that we sometimes, perhaps I am projecting, get frustrated and we will say things we don't mean, but also we say things offhandedly. And we might comment on other kids' application processes or talk about other kids in the neighborhood or talk about the way other parents are handling things, that kind of thing. There's a lot of off the cuff remarks that go on in parenthood, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody else. But I just want to bring this to your attention. The way that you speak about other people and the way that you speak about colleges makes an impact on your child. I know this because your children come into my office and repeat you to me. And you can replace me with your child's college counselor or with your child's English teacher or with any other person. They will repeat you back to me. So when I'm sitting with a kid and I am trying to help them make a college list or talk about schools where they might want to go visit, they will definitely tell me, my mom says that's not a good school. Or my dad says I'll never get hired anywhere if I go there. Like, who hires people who go there? Or my mom says anybody can get in there. Those are not helpful phrases, and they're often not true. And I think, I am a Gen Xer. I applied to college in 1991. So I understand all the memes and all the jokes and how easy it was back then. It was easier for us because we did not have the internet. And the internet has changed college applications. It's not the Common App. The Common App's been in existence since the 70s. It's not, it's not a lot of things that you might think it is, but it is the internet, because the internet has brought an awareness to colleges and an awareness to the selectivity of colleges that we did not have, because we actually had to type out or handwrite our applications and send them from a post office. And I'm not sure that my children could tell you where a post office was if you paid them money. And they'll do a lot of things if you pay them money, but I don't think they know where a post office is. So yes, things have changed, but as things have changed, so have colleges. And the school that you could, write a one-page application for and basically give them your name and your address, yes, might be very selective now. And that's not surprising, right? Because there's an internet now and people know about it and people are using the internet to apply to more colleges and things have changed. So I would warn you first not to make proclamations or declarations about colleges that you actually don't know a lot about in 2024, because they're different. They all grew up too. So once you have gone on visits and toured the campuses and listened to their programs, you feel free to make any judgment you want, although I would warn you not to offer your opinion to your child because your opinion might not be welcome, but you definitely can make more opinions based on that. It's just that things have changed. Um, when you talk about the way that other children are admitted to colleges, like if they are offered a pathway program, or you say, oh, they got in, but they got in because their mom went there, or they got in because, they're this or that or the other, your remarks and your statements make an impact on your children that way too. What I will never forget the first time I had a child in my office and he said, the thing I'm most nervous about is that I listened to my mom talk to my auntie on the phone, and I listened to her talk about the other kids in the neighborhood applying to colleges, and I'm afraid that she's not going to be proud of me, and she's not going to want to talk about my college, and that she'll be disappointed, and that there will be this sound in her voice when she talks to my auntie on the phone about it. And since then, I've heard a million iterations of that. Like that's happened a million times. And I will tell you that, and I've said this a lot here, and I've said it everywhere I appear. The reason that kids cry in my office is not because they're disappointed for themselves. It's because they're afraid of disappointing their parents. And that can be because they're getting a bad grade. It can be because they are not going to get into a college that their parents really want them to go to. It can be because they're very frustrated that they don't want to apply to a college that their parents really want them to apply to, that their parents aren't listening to them when they say, I don't want to apply to that college. It can be a really hard process for kids because they actually care about what you think. And I know that I think my kids don't care about what I think because they tell me. But I also know it's true that my kids do care about what I think. And you need to know that too. So I'm going to tell you early on to try and not say a lot about other people's children, about the colleges that your kids might apply to, about colleges you would never even imagine your kids applying to, or about your kids' potential or possibilities. I'd also caution you against making a really big deal out of things like class rank or straight A's or honor roll. I would applaud the work that goes into that. It's a lot of work. School is hard. Those kids work really hard, and I absolutely applaud their work and their effort. But what happens is that kids who have straight A's live in fear of getting a B, and they believe that their life will be over if they get an 89.4. And that sets them up for some really dangerous mental health situations. When they start cultivating their whole personality around their grades or around their class rank or around their potentials for colleges, all they do is worry about losing that spot. And I will just tell you, as a Florida Gator fan, which you can see in the background here, I know that the years when we were ranked number one in the preseason were the years when all we could do was fall, like that you're just waiting to lose. And that's the way these kids feel. When they have straight A's, they're waiting to fall. They're waiting to fall off the pedestal. So I actually love it when a kid makes a B. Like, this is a great thing for you. Let's rip the Band-Aid off, because otherwise they live in fear of getting that first B. And kids who wait until college to get their first Bs have a rough transition in college too. So I realize that there are millions of kids out there getting straight A's. The research is out there. And I'm not telling you not to encourage your kids to get straight A's. That would be ridiculous. But I would also just, something that you need to enforce over and over again is that a B is not a bad grade. It's okay to get a B. It's actually really easy to get into college. It's just hard to get into certain colleges. And that's not because you get a B. Like a B is not telling any college that you can't do college level work. It's just because of math and because there are too many people who want the beds on a campus, and they're trying to fulfill their own institutional priorities. It's not because you got a B in a class, for the love. Also, there's this word enough that I hear a lot, and that comes from the kids' mouths, but it also comes from parents' mouths. The kids will say, is this enough? Am I good enough? Are my grades good enough? Are my activities enough? Are my scores high enough? And I think that we have to be careful about that enough word, because our children are good enough because they get out of bed in the morning. You know, there's a higher purpose to life than your GPA or your test score or whether or not you're president of the student council. And I think that you, as parents, and I put this on me too, have to enforce that from an early age. So I know that we all want to tell them, like, take your grades seriously. This is important. Like, take school seriously. Yes, they should take school seriously. But also, it's also important that we look at life as more than just school. And the kids who understand that they have a higher purpose than what they do at school are the kids who stay mentally more like healthier throughout this whole process. I know Grown and Flown is friends with Jenny Wallace, who wrote a book called Never Enough, I believe. Lisa, is that the name of her book? It's been a really long week, but it's a good book and you should read it. Okay, it is Never Enough. It's a good book. You should read it. But she's writing a new book, and her whole premise is on something that I've like thought about and talked about for a long time, which is it's called like mattering. And I think that it's really important that we enforce to our kids that they matter, and that it's important to look for ways to matter and look for purposes outside of what we get on the next test. And that can be through volunteer work, through the impacts they can make on the world, no matter where they go to college, and for like looking at life as like more than just where you go to college and, you know, how you do in high school. So think about words like, not, instead of thinking about what's enough, they're all enough. Like nobody is not enough. Like we're all capable of doing good in this world and having great lives. And it doesn't matter if we go to a 2-year college or if we don't go to college at all, or if we go to Harvard. As a Princetonian, I have some things to say about Harvard, but it's fine. It's fine. Harvard is allowed to exist. It doesn't matter. Any one of those paths is going to be fine. It's about who we are. And you have to remind them of that. I think that we like start to forget that we have to tell them a lot that we love them and that they're good enough and that we're just proud of them. Like we're just proud of them for being like upright every day. And you cannot say it enough. And they'll be annoyed and they will roll their eyes and they will tell you that you're cringy and they will tell you that, you know, you're annoying. You're all of those things. Absolutely. But it still matters to them to hear that message. Did I say I went to Princeton? Yes. Yes, I went to Princeton. Yes, I did. So, so do enforce that with the kids, that you're proud of them every day. And for my senior parents, I'm gonna shift a little bit from like, these are the things that I want you to think about, like leading up to junior and senior year, especially when you start going on visits. I want you to think about watching your language, how you talk about college, how you talk about your kids, how you talk about grades. That, you know, grades don't define your kids, scores don't define your kids. What they do outside of school doesn't define your kids. But finding purpose in the world and finding purpose in what that can help define who we are, right? And all these college essays are going to start asking them about what's shaped them. Not my favorite verb, but because I'm always like, what, are they fully shaped at 17? They're not fully shaped. They've got like shaping to do. So don't tell me about what shaped you. Like you're not shaped yet. Like you're still like dough. But in any case, all of these things that they have all these experiences. Kids will say, well, should I do this? Is this good for college? And I'm like, well, it's good for you as a human. Like, do the things that are good for you as a human. Rick Clark from Georgia Tech says, and I agree with him, that the best way to be a good college applicant is to be a good human and a good high school student. Be a good high school student. Like, be somebody who's engaged in your community, be somebody who's engaged and cares about people. Like, these are things that have nothing to do with what you got on calculus or like how high your verbal score is on the ACT. These are things that matter all the time. So we can talk about them as human qualities. But in terms of actual parents of seniors, now I'm going to target what I say to you and any of the rest of you. I want you to look at this as your future. This is what's coming down the pike, right? And remember, I'm in it. I'm in it with you. I have a senior right now. I also have a junior in college, and I also have a senior in college. So I'm in it in all sorts of ways. I also have a 12-year-old girl, and y'all, she's my first girl. Savage. 12-year-old girls are savage. Also amazing and awesome and wonderful, and I love them, but brutal. So we're all going to pray for me, but my parents of seniors, couple of rules that you can break or not. Don't talk about college all the time. Not even this week, maybe especially this week. Make a deal with your kid. I will ask you questions about college. I will talk to you about college once a week. I'm allowed to ask you what's going on with your applications. Have you checked your portals? Did you get your scores sent? But if I know, because I, like you, only see my senior in high school every once in a while. It's not a common occurrence. He is very busy. He has a car. He has a job. He has maybe a new girlfriend. Nobody say anything. Okay. It's like delicate. And so when I see him, I don't actually feel this urge, but you might feel the urge to be like, can we talk about college? Because you haven't seen your kid and it's hard to pin them down. They're a little slippery. If they start to worry that every time they see you, every time you lay eyes on them, you're going to bring up the C word, they will avoid you. 100% they will avoid you. They will absolutely avoid you. And unfortunately, they might also start avoiding college and the entire application, like word. I guess I'm also talking to parents of juniors right now too. So you guys can think about this too. So my advice is you lay it out with them. I promise you, I am not bringing up college except for one time a week. Maybe it's Sunday night after dinner. I'm allowed to ask you whatever I want for an hour and a half, and that's it. I promise you, I will never bring it up otherwise. And that's hard. It is really hard, but you can do it. I believe in you. You can do hard things. And then you tell them if you want to bring up college, if you have questions, if you need to talk to me about logistics, if you want to talk to me about planning college visits, if you want to talk to me about a deadline that you're worried about, or you want me to read an essay for you, absolutely, I'm more than happy to talk about it, but I am not going to chase you down. I know that some of you are going to be like, but if I didn't do that, they won't do it. Okay, that is their problem. Like, you cannot care about it more than they do. You can't. Trust me, this is something that I have had to come to terms with, not just as a parent, but as a college counselor. I have had to take my ego out of it, take like all of my purpose in life, which is to get some of these kids into college, and say, I cannot want it more than they do. If they want it, they will do it. I know, because they do a lot of things that they want to do. And they don't do a lot of things that they don't want to do. And by the way, if college doesn't happen next year, it can happen the year after that. Like, it's not going anywhere. They can do it. You could go to college. So try and remember that. And you should not be applying to college for your children. Yeah. The other day, I tried to tell a senior in the hallway, hey, you're missing materials from this college. Like, have you looked at your portal? And he was like, my mom is doing all of that. And I said, but it's your college application. And like, I can't help you if you don't know and he was like, well, why would I do it if my mom's doing it? And I had to walk away from that one because I didn't like it. But also I had to like come to my office and say, that's where his head is. Like, maybe he's not ready. And maybe it's just not like, maybe his mom wants it more than he does right now. And that's got to be okay. Like, this is not like, my job is to be available. My job is to offer guidance. My job is not to want it more than he does. And so if that is your child and you want it more than they do, you cannot actually force this to happen. Like they actually need to want it to happen. So try it and do the 1 day a week thing. The second thing is that you celebrate everything. Your senior year as a parent, it is your senior year as a parent kind of too. Like you're coming up on your own graduation. You celebrate everything. I have stickers that I give out on November 1st every year that say I applied, much like I voted, but they're like oval. They say I applied. And that is because we celebrate the work of applying. It is work to apply to college. So I would rather celebrate the work of applying to college rather than celebrate getting into college. But I do celebrate that too. But I feel like this is where we say, so proud of you for doing this really hard thing and putting this work into it, figuring out this process and like going through this exercise and getting this done. And I think that if you put the emphasis on applying, then whether like it takes some of the pressure of we only celebrate if you get in somewhere. It's more like we're just proud that you're going through this process to begin with. And honestly, they should be celebrated for it because this process is hard. And I'm sure if you're in it, you've seen it's convoluted. There's a lot going on. So many self-reported transcripts, so many ways to send scores, so many different requirements from different universities. It's a little ridiculous. And I'm the first one to say it. So celebrate that. When you know that decisions are being released, and we're coming up on a date where things are going to start being released, tell them you're proud of them and hug them and love them before they find out. Because don't let them think that it's predicated on good news. Just make sure that you are, I call senior year snacks and hugs year. Like parents need to be snacks and hugs parents. You need to feed them and you need to hug them as much as they'll let you. First of all, I know from experience, like this is your last year to really get to hug them a lot. And you can kind of catch them unawares. They're going to leave soon in one way or another. And so take advantage of having them home, like baby them, make them lunch. And yes, they're adults, but this is when you get to like coddle them a little bit, not by doing their applications for them, but like by spoiling them a little and doing things for them and just telling them you love them and that you're proud of them. I know that sounds really basic, but you'd be surprised how caught up in all of life that we all get that it makes a big impact on the kids. So just keep saying it. Annoy the crap out of them. I don't care. And then, yes, celebrate no matter where they get in. My senior in high school has gotten into 5 colleges already. That's because his mother is a college counselor. And I made him apply to early wins. For reference, you can go back and watch my session on early wins and see rolling schools that give early results to students and the impact it makes on a student to have an early acceptance, which I knew would be very important for my current senior in high school. So he got into Arizona State and Western Carolina and the University of West Florida. And I make a big deal out of all of them. And he does roll his eyes and he thinks I'm ridiculous, but listen, Arizona State is awesome and got into the Cronkite School, super proud. And that's a big deal. The kids will say to me, well, my mom says everybody can get in there. It's like not selective. Who cares? It's college. Like you're going to college. You can go to college. So we celebrate everything. We celebrate the Princetons. We celebrate the Western Carolinas. Like we celebrate all of it. Also, just sidebar, the University of West Florida has the cutest acceptance package. And I love that. Like they get stuff in the mail and they get stickers and they get swag and kids love stickers. They do love themselves a sticker. But on UWF's acceptance package, they're in Pensacola, if you don't know it. It's a good school. They have a football team and, they've got everything. It's pretty. And their acceptance like folder says, shell yeah, I'm a UWF Argonaut. Like, first of all, Argonaut's really hard to make cool, but shell yeah, I love it. Like, that's so cute. Anyway, sidebar. So yeah, watch your language, Use one day a week, celebrate everything. And I mean, you're not going to have a chance to celebrate everything once they go to college. It's really hard. So go for it, like blow it out this year. Celebrate the work of applying, celebrate everywhere they get into. Never say like, this is your safety school sounds like loser school. So we call them likelier schools, but you got to like your likely schools. So yeah, celebrate everything. Get really excited about acceptance packages that come in the mail. It's really fun. And snacks and hugs. Those are all my big rules. And I will tell you, I put out a post every year, and I haven't done it yet, but I will have Lisa post it in the group when I do it tonight. And I read it again today, and I said, your kids are frustrated. This process is stupid in so many ways. They feel like it's dumb. And I think everybody on every side of the desk would agree with that we've somehow gotten ourselves into a position where the college admissions process is not really good for anybody. It's not good for the people working at colleges. It's not really good for the parents. It's not good for the counselors. I'm living on Fritos and Coke Zero now, y'all. Definitely 100%. So, and the people it's really, really not great for is the students. And there's nothing student friendly about this process. There's all these self-reported transcript issues. There's all these supplemental questions asking them things like, why do you want to be in this honors college? They're 17. They've never even been to college yet. How do they know if they want to be in that honors college? They don't know. What are they supposed to say? So dumb. Anyway, sorry, I have opinions, but I think that it's really important to acknowledge that and to say like, well, this process is dumb, and to just remember that this is at the heart of this. This is a critical parenting moment. Like this is when you have to show up like big time. So don't get so caught up in the process, and don't get so caught up in like getting in and where you're going to get in and all of this kind of stuff. Or will you ever get hired from this college? Yes, they can get hired from that college. I don't care what the college is. They can get hired from it. Don't get so caught up in that you don't remember that you're the parent and they're vibing off of you. Oxygen masks go on you first. Horses can smell fear, all the metaphors, but you've got to be okay. And you've spent 18 years raising this kid, and this kid's going to be okay. They are. They'll be okay if you believe they're going to be okay. And people ask me all the time, like, where's your son going to college? And I said, I don't know. I have no idea where he's going to college. And they're like, well, where does he want to go? And I'm like, you don't know. We'll see in April, like what our choices are. We'll go visit. I don't care where he goes to college because my kid is awesome. He's got a great personality. He's got like skills with digital media. He designed the hoodie he wore to school today. They're selling it in the school store. My kid is awesome. My kid has less than a 3.2 GPA, and my kid does not have an amazing SAT score. He's awesome. He's going to be fine. And I believe that with my whole heart. And because of that, he's not worried about where he goes to college or what he does. Like he's going to be great. And one of the things, I'll give you a few tips that I do with my students when they're feeling super stressed out. One of the things we do is we look at the colleges where they want to go to school, and we look at the professors. We look at the faculty, and we look at where they went to school. Most of the time, I mean, there are some of those people who went to Harvard or Princeton and Yale and whatever fancy schools. But a lot of the times they went to state schools, state universities. They started off at, East Buxtehude State. And they are academics and they're brilliant and they've done all this research and they've published and they're teaching at the schools where your children are applying, but they didn't go to those schools necessarily. So I like to show them people come from everywhere and it's not about that. And yes, there was that book years ago, Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be. I will tell you before, Lisa, you link it, I don't actually recommend that book very much because Frank Bruni is very fancy and he went to all these fancy schools. So like, okay, Frank Bruni, we get it. Like who you are is not who you'll be, but also you went to fancy schools. And I do understand. I went to Princeton, so it sounds fancy. I'm a school counselor, so I'm not fancy. But I think that more important is to look at like ourselves. A lot of the parents that you know did not necessarily start at a four-year university. In fact, two of the state directors of admission went to a two-year college first, and then they transferred to a four-year university. I love it when the college reps come and visit and they didn't start at the colleges. They went to a two-year college and then to the four-year university. Two-year colleges are awesome, and they don't require a test score, and they don't require a certain GPA. They're open access. God bless two-year colleges. So just remember that, that the paths are winding. And I'm telling you that because that's part of you centering yourself and doing the homework on yourself first. Before you can be a good parent, you have to believe things, and you have to believe that your kid is going to be okay. Your kids know you better than anyone, and they know when you are bluffing. So do that work on yourself first. But yeah, November 1st, you want to hug them. You want to love on them, and you don't want to talk about college on November 2nd. Like, give them a breather, let them decompress. Ice cream is really good. Taylor Swift live streams are really good. So do all of those things, but just remember, getting in is page one. Actually going to college is the rest of the book, and then the rest of their lives. And I do have to remind the kids of that all the time. I'm like, do you even want to go to that college? Because getting in is like, whatever, but then you have to like go do the thing. And they're like, I don't really want to. I don't really want to go there. I don't want to live there. I don't want to be that far away. I don't want to, like, listen to your kids because it's their life, and we went to college. So, or we didn't, and we turned out okay. All right. It's 8:33. I've got chat. I'm going to answer questions now. In the last talk you mentioned, there definitely is an advantage for applying EA to U Michigan, but they don't post EA percentage data. So where did you get your info from to come to that conclusion? I know people. I don't just say things. Because I'm a journalist, I'm super careful about what I say, to the point where I actually annoy the college people because I make them repeat themselves. But I talked to a Michigan admissions counselor, and they said, and I'll explain this to you, Meredith. The reason why they say there is an advantage to applying EA to U Michigan is that if you apply early action, you almost definitely are going to be deferred, because Michigan, and here's where I go on my TED Talk about Michigan, every single student I work with applies to Michigan. Their branding is amazing because they've somehow convinced 105,000 students a year that they really want to pay that price to go be cold for a large amount of the year in Michigan, which, I mean, no shade to Michigan. I actually love Michigan. I love the lakes, Outwater, Michigan, one of my favorite places. But I mean, come on now, there are warmer places with big state schools. Anyway, 105,000 applications. They defer almost everybody early action. But the advantage you have is that if you are deferred, you get to send them a mid-year update, and you get to send them like a love letter. And if you only apply regular decision, then you don't have the ability to like do the update. So that's why there's a slight advantage. I will tell you that I am very open with my students and say, if you don't get to Michigan early action, like, I don't think it's a big deal. Just apply in the regular decision round. So I would not make it a huge deal. But yes, I came to the conclusion by asking Michigan admissions officers, and that's usually where I get my information. I make admissions officers talk to me. They love it. They love me. Okay. Oh, I'm so glad, Christina, that it made a difference for your daughter. Wherever they go, they'll learn and meet people. Yes. Yes. It's true. It's true. Any disadvantage to applying EA to multiple or most of the colleges on a kid's list? No, there's no disadvantage to that, other than just make sure they're not rushing through it to the point where they're not putting forth their best application. If I feel like a student is rushing to get it in for the EA deadline and that's compromising their application, that's the only time when I'm like, maybe we just wait until regular decision. Like, it's okay. Again, I feel like if you have a college list where you have enough options on it, it shouldn't be the end of the world. Like, you should have plenty of options. So, and I do have kids who are starting to like really get fatigued right now. If you think about this, again, another one of my TED Talks about this process, It's November 1st this week. The kids have Halloween weekend, which I've heard about nonstop from the kids. Well, I want to be done by Halloween weekend. Halloween weekend. I do not remember having such a structured party plan for my Halloweens in high school, but cool. But it's also homecomings. It's also MPAs for band kids. It's also like the ends of their seasons. My senior has a football playoff on Friday night, like a playoff game on Friday night. Um, they have so much going on. They have their first quarters are ending. They're worried about their grades. Their classes are getting harder. So there's so much on their plates right now. We would not ask adults to handle and juggle all the things that these kids are handling and juggling at the same time at this point. So if your kid looks like they need oxygen and they are like, cannot write another supplement, absolutely don't worry about it. Push it to regular decision. Who cares? Like your kid is more important than whether or not they get that application in for early action. The reason that I try to get as many in early action as possible is not necessarily for admissions results, but it's more about trying to spread out work and giving them as much information as early as possible to figure out their regular decision plan. But yeah, it can go either way. Hold on, let me look at my doc. For those whose students have Common App and niche, are you getting the same direct admission rates from both? I'm just wondering if we really need to have her also create a niche account or niche. Some people call it niche. I call it niche. I think niche sounds weird, like a dirty word. It might be just me. So I get my admissions like my admissions rates. Are you talking about, hold on. Same direct admissions. So if you're talking about the program where they admit you directly through Common App or through Niche, I don't believe that they're the same schools that have contracts with each of those. Oh, that is what you meant. Yeah. So Niche might have contracts with certain colleges and Common App might have contracts with certain colleges. I'm not sure you need to have an account in both, but you can if you want to. For those of you who are wondering what the heck I'm talking about, last year, the Common App started this program where based on the information in your child's Common App or based in the information that you put in a niche account, colleges can offer your child admission without them actually applying. The way they do that is they will offer them admission and say, if you apply, then we will admit you. There have been some interesting ones like this year. Saw Southern Methodist, like SMU, is doing direct admission on Common App, which is kind of interesting. And like a bunch of nice schools, Merrimack College, Mount St. Union, I think in Ohio. So there's some interesting ones. Do you need to have a niche account? I mean, probably not. I think that the colleges that are offering direct admission, your student could probably find on their own if they're interested in them. But if you want to, I mean, go for it. Might be, yeah. Wazoo. I don't know. Yeah. How many schools are doing direct admits? Are these schools looking for students because of low enrollment? Yes. Yes, that is what's happening. Yeah, it's a way for them to broaden the net and like try and bring in more kids. So because of the FAFSA issues last year, there was more melt at a lot of schools than usual. Melt is when kids think they're coming to college and then they disappear over the summer and they don't actually enroll in the college. There are also a lot of kids who just couldn't afford college when they finally got their FAFSA information and finally got their financial aid packages. They couldn't afford where they thought they were going to go. So a lot of small private colleges are struggling to fill their classes. And that's not because they're bad colleges. It's because college is expensive and because the government really fumbled the ball on the whole FAFSA thing. And it's not opening until December 1st this year. So we're going to hope it doesn't happen again. We're going to hope it doesn't break. But colleges are a little more prepared this year to try and give packages without the FAFSA if they can. But yeah, so little colleges and little private schools are struggling. And that is something that you should ask them about. You should ask them about their financial health, where you can find out about their financial health and like what their yield was last year and enrollment numbers. I think that is absolutely within your rights as a parent and a consumer to ask them. And I don't know how many schools actually are enrolled in the direct admissions programs at Common App or Niche, but there's a lot. I've seen students with like 50 offers. The students didn't necessarily know where any of these colleges were, except for I picked out a few of them and was like Buffalo, SUNY Buffalo is on there. Like I said, SMU, Merrimack College. There's a bunch, but yeah, so a lot of them. Yeah, a lot of them in the Northeast, which is where a lot of tiny private colleges are. Okay. Do colleges release their prompts before the August 1st release of the Common App? It would be nice to get started on them earlier in the summer. I do recommend starting to work on them earlier in the summer. I don't recommend starting them before the summer. Some schools start kids on Common App essays before the summer. I just don't think that the kids are fully ready to do that yet. Like they're not fully baked. Like they need some more time in the oven. But in any case, the Common App releases their prompts for the main essay every year around March. So you'll know that and whether or not they're changing. I will tell you that every year there's a prompt that says you can write whatever you want. So students really can write about whatever they want for their personal essay, their main personal essay. Now, the prompts for individual colleges for the supplements, that you cannot necessarily count on. What ends up happening is that universities, admissions teams are fully working into the summer because after they do freshman first time in college admission and work on their enrollment date and that May 1st date that they want everybody to commit to, they have to do transfers and things like that. So they don't actually get to take a vacation until the middle of the summer. And usually there are some places that will set their supplemental questions before they leave for the summer and before they take their measly vacations, whatever they are. But a lot of times they come back and have meetings before they finalize their applications. So it is hard to work on supplements before August 1st at a lot of schools. There are some that release them earlier, but a lot of them don't. So my advice is you work on that personal essay. You want to nail the personal essay. So you work on that first. And then you can count on a few things. You're going to need to write what we call the community essay. Like there's a community that you're a part of. You can define community in a million different ways. What is that community and what is your role in it? That's, the typical Michigan prompt. It fits for a lot of different schools. There's also an extracurricular essay. There's always going to be like, what's your most meaningful extracurricular activity or an extracurricular activity that's been meaningful to you? Those two can kind of overlap a little bit. And then there's always going to be the why do you want to study what you want to study? And if you're undecided, what are you interested in and why are you interested in it? That kind of thing. So you can count on a few subjects being like coming up repeatedly. So you could start working on those or gathering your thoughts at least. So there is work that you can do, even if you don't know the supplements ahead of time. Any comments on applying to the UC system? Yeah. So the PIQs actually do come out early in the summer, the personal insight questions that the UCs use. The UCs have 8 prompts. You pick 4, and they're 350 words each, I think. They don't usually change, but they do release them for sure and finalize them for sure at the beginning of the summer. So you can definitely work on those. And if I have a student who is applying to the UCs, I always have them start with that because sometimes they get their personal essay topic out. Because the UCs don't read a personal essay. So you might like write about something for one of those 4 prompts and then decide you want to expand on it and make it your personal essay. So it's a good way to like break the seal. And the good thing about the UC PIQs is that they're very direct and they're not looking for you to be flowery and literary and hooky and, gimmicky and like, here's I'm going to prove to you my worth as a human being kind of things. They're very direct. They ask you a question. They want you to answer it. They're really good about giving advice too. Lisa, if you can find the link, if you just Google UC PIQs, there is a link from the UC system itself where they have videos. They have like writing advice, and they tell you questions to consider when you're answering each question. Like they lay it out, they're very transparent. So those are my comments about applying to the UC system. The thing that you want to keep in mind about the UC system too is that major is very important to the UCs. Applying to liberal arts and sciences is going to be a lot less selective than applying to business or computer science or engineering. Business, computer science, and engineering are really tough, like really tough. And the question that comes up is, if I have a kid who wants to be an engineer, are they okay if they're not an engineering major? Like, would they rather go to a UC and major in physics? Or do they want to throw their hat in their engineering? It is incredibly hard to get into engineering. So my humanities majors, my history majors, my econ majors, my English majors, all three of them in the world that are left, any of those kids have a better shot of getting into the UCs than my engineers, my business kids, my computer science kids. So you want to remember that. UCLA and UC Berkeley have 150,000 applications apiece. UC Santa Cruz is pretty accessible of the UCs. Riverside, Irvine, more accessible. UCSD, there's like the whole residential college piece that you have to figure out too. So I would say just do your research on each of them and make sure that you know what you're applying to and why. But yeah, I like the UCs. I love UCLA. My daughter says she's going to UCLA, which I told her, well, then you better do well in school. And the other thing is, kids with really high test scores tend to usually want to add UCs to their application. And I say, okay, well, this is where I have to remind you that they won't see those test scores. So we are relying solely on your academic profile. And for kids who are out of state, it's going to matter a lot that it's hard to have your classes be considered honors classes if you're out of state. They need to be like AP, IB classes, like just honors classes out of state are not counted as honors classes for the UCs if you're from out of state. They're their own animal, but it's possible to get in. It's not impossible. I get kids go to UCs every year. Let's see. Parent of a senior here. Our high school college counselor is highly recommending that the seniors apply early action. So my son has 5 colleges that have this Friday's deadline. Although he already has an early win, yay, he is finally excited and hopeful about applying to colleges. One of the schools where he is applying is the University of Maryland, which accepts 90% of its incoming class from EA. My priority for my son, due to various reasons, is finding schools with a good social fit, and he knows that. I've told him that a college can have a high admit rate and still be an excellent school. Thank you for all your advice. Absolutely, a college can have a high admit rate and still be an excellent school. My child is at Furman University, and if you have seen my sessions before, you'll know I'm a huge fan. And Furman's acceptance rate the year that he got in was something around 70%, especially for boys, because they're a small liberal arts university. They don't have engineering, and they don't have an undergrad business degree. So they have a harder time getting boys there. And as my son says, the ratio works in his favor, because I'm like, your girlfriend is so adorable. Like, how did you pull that? And he's like, hello, the ratio is amazing, like 60-40. So it's not a bad thing necessarily, but he is having the best college experience. He loves every second of it. He actually hates to be home. He can't wait to go back to college every time he comes home for anything. It's a little annoying. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, okay, go back to college. Like, I get it. You don't like us anymore. But, a 70% acceptance, and they gave him a huge merit aid offer. And he absolutely loves it, has all the support in the world. I love that Furman has mandatory academic advising every week for the first 2 weeks, or for the first 2 years of college. He's getting more career advice, more advising, more support than most college children I know anywhere. And I know a lot of college children, like so many college young adults, whatever you want to call them. And so, yeah, it does not have to be highly selective or selective at all. There are some schools out there with, I think Miami of Ohio's rate is somewhere in the high 80s for acceptances. That is a great school. Kids love it. there is no bad thing that I can tell you about Miami, Ohio. But you know, but we think that colleges have to be selective in order to be good. I mean, selectivity is just based on how many applications they get versus how many people they can take. It's just math, so it's not experience. Okay. Will we know now, or when will we be informed if any colleges who are currently test optional or blind will remain so for fall of 2026? Do they give a year's notice? No, they do not. When will they tell you? Okay, so they all have different, like they'll tell you when they decide, is basically the answer. Colleges do what they want. And admissions committees are not always in charge of that decision, or I would say maybe are never in charge of it. That's a board of trustees, like that goes through many layers of approval. So they announce it. I would say that human beings in the admissions offices are the ones who feel the students' pain the most because they see it firsthand. It's all the other bureaucrats that don't understand the effect on kids. So just keep that in mind. Don't take it out on the admissions offices. They're very good humans. And they read all your kids' essays and they like fall in love with them and they love your kids. But once a university has decided that's probably what they're going to do is go back to requiring test scores or permanently go to test optional or extend their test optionalness, it has to be approved by a lot of people. So I would say they're probably not going to start announcing anything anytime soon, but start looking for it like in February and then, see what it says. On their current websites, some of them will say we are test optional at least through 2027 or at least through this. And they hopefully won't go back on that, but there's no guarantees. They might. And that's not always within their power. Like they don't have to keep their word. So welcome to the fun. Yeah. So you might not know for a while. Managing my own stress and expectations. My son is going early decision for Cornell, which is due Friday. I'm trying to be helpful by editing his essays to whittle down the word count, but leave him to finish it. I mean, I think that one thing that I do advise parents is that if your kids don't ask you to read their essays, my advice is that you don't read their essays because I think it's our reflex to want to fix things. And especially this year, especially in 2024, the year of our Lord and Savior, Taylor Swift, and AI, you don't want your kid's essay to be perfect necessarily. And I think we think they should be perfect and we want to like make every grammar mistake perfect. The thing is, I've read essays written by AI that kids have given me, and they're perfect. And I can totally tell that they're AI. I've also read essays that have been heavily doctored by parents. And I can also tell that a 50-year-old business executive wrote a lot of that essay or overwrote their children. So be really careful about editing. But yeah, whittling down is helpful. And that's I think one of my value adds to my students is when they've written too much and I can just cut their words. I'm so used to editing and being in the journalism world and not being married to words that it's a lot easier for me to do it than for them to do it. But just be careful. If they ask you to read their essay, my advice to you is the first thing you say is how amazing it is and how proud you are of them and that they did such a. And then you can say, do you want me to edit it? Or do you want my advice? Do you want my feedback? And then be very careful about what you do and be very careful about what you say. I say that as the daughter of a Princeton English major who, when I gave him my college essay, which was of course printed out on a dot matrix printer because it was 1991, he gave it back to me covered in red ink with very helpful suggestions. I'm still not over it, like at all. So, just keep that in mind. But yeah, if they ask for your help and they ask for your feedback, you can give it to them. Just be careful. And yeah, let them write it and don't think it needs to be perfect because I will say having an imperfect essay, if it still delivers enough like content about your child and the admissions committee can understand them and like have a positive impression of them and like get some meaningful like information about them from it, that's the whole purpose of that essay. It's not to dazzle them with your children's grammar skills. And in fact, it's kind of nice when they're not perfect because you're like, okay, a kid wrote this, not ChatGPT. Penn State indicates that it doesn't require the personal essay. Does this mean that they will block the personal essay from coming through, but then they require a personal statement with the same number of words? So my son was just going to put his personal essay as his personal statement. Would that make sense? Yes, that's what I tell my students, is to put their personal essay in as the Penn State personal statement. And then I just tell them to say, no, don't include my personal essay. Fun fact about the Common App. Colleges cannot say, don't send the personal essay. They can only say it's required, or they can say it's optional. They can't say, we won't read it. So if it's optional, most of the time, they're not going to read it, but because they just haven't been able to say, don't send it. And in Penn State's case, they want to see it in their app, not in the main Common App. So yes, that's what you should do. Is there a way to find out numbers by state of applicants to colleges? Sometimes, like, it really depends on the college. So I'm sure you've noticed some colleges are more transparent than others. In SCORE and in certain, like maybe niche, and sometimes on college websites, they'll tell you like their top states, like Wake Forest, their second biggest feeder state is New York, state of New York. Or like the colleges will tell me when they come to visit, like they'll tell me where their students come from. You can ask them, like they'll tell you, but they won't tell you numbers usually. They don't necessarily know that off the top of their heads. It's not in the common data set, but there is a table where the UCs like tell you where every single admitted applicant came from, including like down to like how many came from each California high school and from every individual high school in every different state. I can try to find those links for you. They're not links that I keep on hand all the time. I find them interesting, but at the end of the day, I find them to be enough of a, like, we should just give it a shot, like, and see what happens, that I don't rely on it that much. Yeah, so that was Dr. Avery. Yeah. But for most colleges, no, the UCs have a lot of data, like more data than usual. So for most places, they're not going to have like actual numbers. They certainly don't know it off the top of their heads, but they can tell you like what their big feeder states are and that kind of thing. Yeah, you're welcome. All right. I think I answered everybody's questions. So I'm just going to say to you right now, that's all. Yeah, Lisa's like, that's all. I will have Lisa link in the chat. That probably my most viral article for Grown and Flown was the one I wrote about how nothing else matters more than your kids. And I'm going to repeat it now because this is my parenting session. And I know it's really easy to get caught up in all of these details. They're tedious details. You're trying to help your kid get over the finish line in a really complicated process. Just keep your eyes on your kids, because mental health it's not just an epidemic. It's not just a crisis. It's Armageddon. And kids are okay until they're not okay. And you have to keep an eye on them. So watch your kids, make sure they know that help is available if they need it. Make sure they know that going to college, like I said, college will be there. If it doesn't happen next year, that's okay. This is not a rush to a finish line. This is not like, this is not the point that hinges whether or not they're going to have a good life. It's not the point that hinges on like whether or not they're going to have a good career. One of the stories that I tell a lot, and I will, Lisa, I promise this will be my last story. One of the stories that I tell a lot is that I had a friend in college who, and this actually happened more than people think. So college was Princeton. And I had a friend who did not do her senior thesis. And at Princeton, everyone has to do a senior thesis. Every single student has to write a senior thesis to graduate. And she didn't write it. She told everybody she was writing it. Like, she acted like she was writing it. She went to dinner every night and complained about it the way all of us did. She was actually a year above me, but she didn't write it. And that actually happens, like even in the 90s, it happened more than you would think, but nobody talked about it. And we didn't have social media where we like shared our souls all the time. And one thing that Princeton doesn't advertise is they will give you years to finish your senior thesis and still give you a diploma. It used to be 7 years. It might still be 7 years. But so she stayed an extra year and lived right off campus and finished her thesis. And, you know, when everybody kind of figured out that she hadn't written her thesis, it was sort of like, wow, like that's, oof, like, can you believe she didn't write her thesis? And like, wow, I didn't know that you could just not write your thesis. And, um, you know, it was kind of like, wow, that's, oof. But she did it. And I was sitting on my couch one day and I turned on CNN and she was on CNN talking about some very big medical breakthrough that she had been a part of. And her dream had been to go to medical school. And here's the thing, not writing your senior thesis at Princeton is like kind of a big deal. Not graduating on time, I'm sure felt like the end of the world. And staying around another year and working on it by yourself and your like all your classmates have moved on. I'm sure that there were many times when she probably felt like a failure. She's like a really big deal and like a really, really successful doctor. And so I bring that up a lot, especially to my kids who are applying to Ivies, but really to any kid. And I say, it can feel like the end of the world, and it's just not the end of the world. Like, it's just not. And the kids had this TikTok trend recently that said the world didn't end because the boy broke up with me, because I didn't get into Duke, because of this. They had this trend going. And I like to remind them of that and say, like, the world does not end if something does not go the way you think it's going to go, or the way you hope it's going to go, or the way you just really dream it's going to go. It doesn't end. There is a day that comes after that. And you've survived all your hardest days so far, and you can do it. So my parting advice to you is you have to believe that first with your whole heart. You have to believe that there are very few mistakes or very few failures that your kids cannot come back from. There are very few things that will deviate them from having a good life. Very, very few. But the one thing that will is if they are not okay. And so you've got to put all your energy into making sure they're okay, like no matter what. So that's what matters. That's the only thing that matters. It's not whether or not they get a B in a class. It's not whether or not they get into this school or that school or they get what they want. We want them to get what they want, but they will be okay if they don't get what they want. They just need to be okay, period. Okay. So thanks for joining me. And I hope to see you again. And congratulate your kids and maybe like make a really big deal out of November 1st and just it being over. And then don't talk about college for 48 hours. I know I look forward to not talking about college for 48 hours. So good. Yes. Snacks and hugs, you guys. Snacks and hugs. Snacks and hugs. All right. Good night.